This is the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board. Tuesday, May 16th. I'll begin the meeting with a script for remotely conducted hybrid open meetings. We are using Zoom for this meeting, which allows for the public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. The chair can request that members of the public provide their names for purposes of keeping accurate minutes of the meeting. Attendees must register to participate. The registration link is unique to the meeting. The registration link can be found in the description of the Nantucket Government TV YouTube live feed for the meeting. Attendees will join in listening mode. They can click the raise hand button if they wish to speak. The chair will call on those who have raised their hands in the order they were raised. All questions should be directed through the chair. As a preliminary matter, I am the chairman of the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. My name is Andrew Lowell. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Scott Anderson.
Here.
Peter Brace.
Here.
Ginger Andrews.
Here.
Dave Bossy.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Do we have any staff on board tonight?
We don't. Tara told me that she's not gonna make it.
Okay. Anybody out there at all aside from
No.
anticipated speakers would respond as well? There were any good morning or good evening. This open meeting of the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This will feature public comment. For this meeting of the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board, we're convening by video conference via Zoom app is posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available at the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective, clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. Andrew Lowell, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Remember to mute your phone and computer when you are not speaking. Remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait for the chair to yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. Members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board, May 16th, 2023. It is now 5:18 p.m. Do we have approval of tonight's agenda with a motion, please?
Motion approved by Scott Anderson.
Dave Bossy, second.
Motions.
We have a motion to approve tonight's agenda by Scott Anderson, seconded by Dave Bossy. All in favor, Mr. Brace?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Bossy?
Aye.
Andrews?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? We'll start with April 18th, 2023. Are there any revisions? If not, I will accept the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made by Mr. Brace to approve the minutes of April 18th, seconded by Mr. Anderson. All in favor? Mr. Brace?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Bossy?
Aye.
Andrews?
Aye.
May 2nd, any revisions for the draft minutes of May 2nd, 2023? Maybe a couple of typos I noticed.
Okay,
Ms. Riley is referred to as Mr. about halfway down in her report. Minor in detail, but thank you, Mr. Brace, for everything you do with the minutes. There are no revisions. I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes of May 2nd.
Dave Bossy, moved.
All right, we've got a motion to move by Scott Anderson. Will that be a second from you, Mr. Bossy?
That will be.
Seconded by Mr. Bossy. All in favor of approval of the minutes, draft minutes of May 2nd, 2023. Mr. Brace,
aye,
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Bossy,
Aye.
Ms. Andrews.
aye,
The chair abstains. I was absent. Nothing for the chairman's report. Marine Department report. Doesn't appear we have any representation. Marine, Natural Resources report. No representation as well. Notified by Tara Riley as such. Comments on Marine Department or Natural Resources, board members?
yeah. From our epic meeting when Sheila was at the meeting. She was talking about those inflatables, those under 13-foot inflatables. I just saw a couple of them down there in front of the, where Brent Point Marine used to be. And it gives you a sense of how crowded it is. Before, I mean, there's nothing off the town pier. But you look at the size of those things and you imagine 6 of those things deep. It's quite quite an eye opener.
There are any specific questions
No specific question.
for Marine Department? With summer coming up, we all understand. The harbor master is busy. But, if we have any specific questions, our next meeting is not for 3 weeks from now. Sure, she'd be glad to come in and give a report before summer really comes into action. We can do that either for June 6th or June 20th. We'll also speak next month about our own summer schedule.
I'd say, Mr. Chairman, it would be great to get an update on that boat that's partially submerged on the Husky Shoal or Horse Shed. That they can't get out. It'd be great to hear that that's been removed. Or that,
Especially with the amount of traffic that's gonna start coming in.
right, was it there all last summer, do you know?
The red and white sailboat with no mast.
The one that was partially submerged, she said they used the Coast Guard boat to try and pull it out, and it wouldn't come out.
Oh, okay, all right, no, there's a fresh one on the beach somewhere in the harbor.
Okay,
A red and white sailboat with no mast on it that Burton Balkine posted a couple of photos of it. So we have another like abandonment out there. It sounds like the one that's submerged. May require some special equipment. I really, I don't know, but certainly that and an update on the completion of the town pier and
we have enough barges that come in and out of the harbor, why couldn't the barge or a tugboat, hook up to it and probably have no problem pulling it out?
I can't imagine what it's lodged up to that keeping it there so firmly. All right, well, I suggest board members get in touch with me so I can have a list of questions for the harbor master for her next attended meeting. Public comment on natural resources and marine department. Not seeing any. We'll jump right into old business, the buck sweat explanation and purpose. Anybody been able to come up with some catchy words to draw attention to what we're trying to do?
I sent around an updated version with a slightly more catching headline to it
All right, sorry, I
during the
didn't
week.
see that.
That's it. Gmail comes through, so you gotta look down.
All right,
You wanna take a look at what I printed?
perfect. Boy, I like it. So is this it to the right of the illustration? Okay, so Dave, is this something you formed here, Dave, Mr. Bossy?
Correct. Yeah, that's something, and I've updated the wording to make it a little catchier. I think that was part of Libby and Matt wanted something a little more catchy on the phraseology, and so I tried that.
All right, I'm just gonna read it out loud.
Sure.
When it rains, does the water on your property stay in your property or run off to one of our harbors or ponds? Storms, overwatering, pool and spa draining all create runoff that should remain on your property. Being aware of where the water that does not recharge into your property ends up is important to the health of our water resources. You can view the town resource map here, or you can plan to attend an educational forum presented by the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board on September 9th at 9:30 a.m. in the community room at the town public safety building on Fairgrounds Road. I like that, Dave. Thank you.
Yes, I like it too.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I like it too, except I don't think we should say runs off into a harbor or pond, because how do you know?
That's not factual.
Unless you're living right on the harbor or a pond, then you don't know that.
Well, we could just simply stick may.
Okay,
That's good. May would fix that. Right. It may run into the lily pond and it may recharge there instead of running out the other end. So yeah, that's good.
but
Well,
we should
Lily
also,
Pond does connect, excuse me, oh, sorry,
no, go ahead, Ginger.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Ginger.
Lily Pond does connect to the harbor via a pipe that goes all the way down from Lily Pond.
Mhm.
Absolutely. My
And-
point, I'm sorry, my point was that may is the correct term to use because it may, that water may run into Lily Pond and may recharge there. If it's a dry period, it may not flow into the harbor necessarily. So I think may is good. I think that gets us off the hook. It's well phrased.
Well, yes, absolutely.
So did we have a name for the workshop? Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's a good question.
Because I had proposed the last meeting, or at least threw it out there, the watershed impact workshop. For lack of, what else to call it?
Well, for
I-
sure, watershed impact workshop.
That's definitely what it is.
But it should
But
say
it's,
what we're doing. It should say. I can't think unless I'm in front of my computer screen, but. Should have some words in there that say water is flowing from your house to into the watershed, into the harbor or something like that. I don't know,
What happens on your
How
property
about-
can impact the watershed.
Mr. Chairman,
Ginger.
I think a watershed workshop is an excellent description of what it is. To make a catchy title, we could have a question, we could start with a question saying, are you part of runaway runoff?
I like that too.
I do too.
Runaway
And then a
runoffs.
watershed workshop underneath, we could say, you can find out, or something like that.
Mhm. I think in this case, it's good to personalize it and get the person reading it, or the viewer or the listener, to be curious of their own personal impact. And you know, that's we're on our way there. Repeat that again, Ginger.
Are you
Runaway.
part of runaway runoff?
I
You
think
know,
you should have,
alliteration is kind of catchy.
I think you should have several questions and then present the workshop. So are you part of runaway runoff? Do you know what your fertilizer footprint is? Stuff like that. And then at the end, have what, if you ask those questions, and maybe we have 3 of them. Then we have our text and announce the meeting.
I would see this as more of a social media type of thing, where where you would have a little catchy advertisement on Current or Daybreak or whatever that would have that. A couple
Mhm.
questions, and then you know, attend our meeting. As opposed to this buck slip, I just wanted to separate that from the buck slip, because you can't put too much in a buck slip.
Mhm.
People, they'll fade. But with Daybreak and Current, of course, you can put a whole lot of stuff in there that you know, that's catchy, little punchy stuff that will get people's eye, catch people's eye, and get them to pick up the name of it, which is the Watershed Workshop.
I like the fertilizer footprint question too.
I just think that watershed workshop is too vague. I think it's gotta say what it is.
If I could, what, Ginger, I forget it. What was yours? Your one-liner was
Runaway runoff.
we got runaway runoff. We've got a fertilizer footprint, and we've got a watershed. What's WW? Scott?
I said
think we're-
watershed impact workshop, but
Watershed
Thanks.
workshop. So I think we're onto something here. We've got runaway runoff, we've got fertilizer footprint, and we've got watershed workshop. I'm thinking we could make something out of those little
Mhm.
3 two-letter things. Make something a little catchy that would work when, for instance, the neighborhood group, the fellows, I forget the correct name, that devised us, the conglomeration of all the different neighborhood groups. When they put this out for us and notify their members, that's kind of a little catchy thing that would work. Couple little two-letter phrases. Yeah, the Civic League. So, yeah, let's get all these in the minutes, because these could all gel into something pretty nice.
When do we need to have this by, Peter?
Well, the deadline for, isn't the deadline for the mailing is July 1. Goes out July 1. So I don't know when the deadline is, but when is our next meeting? June?
No, but the bucks, that's separate. I want to make sure we split the 2 of them, because I think the buck slip, we kind of gelled on that, right? We changed to May, and that's that. But I think these other things, there's going to be other advertising. There's going to be the Civic League. There's going to be, maybe, if Jeff can fund it, and I bet he can, like a Nantucket Current ad in there, and that's where I think this stuff will go. This is just my idea. You can only put so much on a buck slip. We could change the whole buck slip and try and put these phrases on it, but I think we might be better off doing that as a little more of a social media thing, leading up to the which should happen in August, leading up to the September date.
builds a little bit, and maybe people recall seeing the buck slip too.
Mhm.
Right. Right, the buck slip's like a wake-up call. Hey, look at this thing. Oh, yeah, and start people thinking about it. And then it kind of comes into play more in July and August as they start to see things in Nantucket Current. And from the Civic League, because I think that's going to be a big draw for us. So net result is our time frame for the buck slip is now, basically, if we agree on it. And
I'll
then these
find out-
other ideas, we have time to talk about these other ideas.
I'll find out when, or maybe Dave, maybe you can find out when the buck slip is due to when we have to have that done. You tell me, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I could check. We could just email Dave Franzuto and ask him. Because he's pretty sure, I'm pretty sure he had the date, because it certainly has to be coming up, because they got to print it and they go out towards the end of June. I think June. They went out early this year. We got our tax bill like a few weeks early. I was surprised. Usually I would have expected it to go out in July, but this year they went out like a couple weeks early. So I have to have Dave check on that.
Well, the date that it gets mailed out is July 1. That's not the question. The question is when is our insert, when does that have to be ready for them?
Right, and Dave Franzuto has that information. I mean, he's been on top of that. I could ask him, or either way. We just asked Dave. But yes, it has to be. We're coming up on it in certainly the next 2-3 weeks. Question is before next week. But I think we're okay on the buck slip. I mean, we discussed that change of Ken or to May. May run off into the harbors. Unless people.
The explanation and purpose for the buck slip. I'm hoping the information on the buck slip is explanatory. And, I think the purpose is kind of self-explanatory once you read what it's about. I don't want to overthink this. Draft an explanation and purpose language for the buck slip insert. Does that all need to be on the buck slip? I mean, explaining.
No, not the purpose for the buck slip, but the purpose of what we're doing. So people pick it up and go, oh, this is cool. But why is it cool? In other words, come to a workshop. Okay, so what are we calling the workshop? And then I just think it's not just, stormwater runoff. I think people need to know that stormwater runoff doesn't just carry pool and spa water, but it carries, all things, you changed your oil, you spilled something, I know there's not much room on there, but I don't mean to be so
Mr.
critical.
Chairman?
I just think we should spell it out. What things are we talking about that we don't want to go into the harbor? Not just pool and spa water and storm water, but did you paint your house? What did you do?
Mr. Chairman?
So can you hold on a minute, Ginger?
Sure.
I'm just saying that you should make people think when they pick up that buck slip, and we can do all the catchy stuff when we do the social media stuff, but you want it to resonate with people, mentioning fertilizer, oil changes, bark mulch, all the things that we rail against we should somehow cram it onto the buck slip, even if it takes up lots of space. We have space for the map. I just think that those things.
What about, excuse me, Ginger, I won't forget you.
I might forget what I wanted to say, but go ahead.
what about, whetting their appetite for the workshop by saying, something like, you may be surprised at, at the impact of your daily activities on your property, this is just blurting this out at the moment. I haven't had a whole lot of time in the past month to really focus on this, but, and please forgive me, board members, for that, but, I appreciate you all putting in the input you have. Ginger?
Oh, I would just say the purpose is to raise awareness of how individuals and watersheds impact harbor water quality. And that's kind of too much of a mouthful, but the purpose is to raise awareness, and the focus is water quality. So,
But I think I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Chairman, I think we need to say the things that affect the water quality. You can't just say you gotta say what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And loads of people put bark mulch on their beds, and loads of people, do their own painting and may change their own oil. They may put gas in boats in their driveways. They may do things. So maybe we don't have to say all that. You can say,
Well, we
toxic
mentioned a
materials or-
few. Come to the workshop to find out all the rest.
right, we don't have to say them all, but we will I'm just thinking someone picks it up, that's great, in the trash,
Yeah.
and so then we hit them with social media, then we hit them with, maybe the Current doing a story or the EQ doing a brief or something like that, and then there can be more explanation. I'm just
Well,
saying,
and the Civic League is
yep,
gonna give us a platform, as is the NSA. I think.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Dave.
I'm just thinking maybe there's kind of some wasted real estate underneath the photo, underneath the map. Maybe I could see about incorporating some of these ideas in that area where it just kind of filler stuff under there if you look at it, right? So maybe if we wipe that out and put in just some way of catchy description of the kind of things Peter was talking about. And,
Yeah.
you do you run your boat engine in your driveway? Do you whatever, I'll think of some things and we can kick them around. I'm sure we have 3 weeks till the next meeting. So we have to check with Dave, but let me see if I can add something to that so we can get it in time.
But
Mr.
counting
Chairman?
back, well, just a second, Ginger, counting backwards, if we're waiting till the next meeting to have proper wording on this, do we have enough time for it to go to print and then be stuffed in envelopes?
Yeah, that's what I'm not sure. We'll have to. That's a Dave Franzuto question for sure. So
we could always have sorry, Dave, if we were adamant about approving the final language, we could always have a special meeting just for that topic, bang it out and then be done, and not, so.
I'll remind you, we also need a date, firm date,
Right,
Saturday or Sunday morning. I'm not sure. I'm thinking nowhere towards Sunday morning, but I don't know about how that works if people think that's bad. But anyway, so we still have to do that. But yes, I agree. We could have a special meeting, advertise it, and quickly get that business done.
Yours, September 9th at 9:30 as an example.
Correct.
All right, Ginger, did you have something else to add?
well, I would just try and make it a little more general rather than just going into the boats or painting, and say individual actions can add pollutants to the watershed, even if you live far from the harbor or out of sight of the harbor, or that it's kind of counterintuitive to think that if you're around Lily Pond that you're adding something to the harbor, but that could be what happens.
Well, that's why I suggested from the get-go that we need lines drawn on a map. When you walk up or ride your bike up Woodbury Lane, and you pass at least 20 or 30 houses before you get to the top. By the time you get to the top of the hill, and you look back towards Lily Pond, and it's a straight shot downhill. Anything coming out of any of those yards is on its way to Lily Pond. And that's, you're just about up back to Upper Main Street at that point. And to think that, something that close to Upper Main Street ends up back down in the harbor from Lily Pond and the Pike to Children's Beach is hard for anybody to imagine. So, catching attention with very few words about personal impact. Somehow, how do we hit the person's curiosity level? Hey, wow, I could have an impact. Scott?
I put down your actions have impacts, fertilizer, fuel, lawnmowers, mulch. Just put everything that Peter was trying to get in there, but just hit him with, your actions.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Say that
Trying to-
again.
I do too.
Your actions have impacts, fertilizing, fueling, mulching, painting.
Actions or activities?
Your activities.
Actions is a stronger word.
Yeah. I mean, taking action, I always liked that. I'm just wondering, how it works into this versus activity, but,
It's sad, some of their inactions also, so if you continue to let your landscapers do it and you're
Mhm.
oblivious,
mhm,
you're in.
which should be another part of our educational, I mean, are you willing to approach your landscaper and share with them what you've learned, and that you want to be a more conscientious homeowner by putting up some edging and containing your mulch? Seeing so many people just tear the grass out at the street's edge and put mulch in.
I think we're getting past the buck slip,
Yeah,
but brings up another important point. We have yet to address an agenda for the meeting. Everybody keep that in mind.
yes. Thank you for that, Dave.
So are we gonna try to add a few other lines on that buck slip?
I've been taking, Scott, I've been writing down your last line. While I was writing on Ginger's, I switched over to yours, so I'm making notes. So I'm gonna try to update that in that space below the map. That's really kind of just filler, and I'm gonna make it non-filler and put this stuff in there and see where we go. And if we have to have a special meeting to approve it, we gotta have a special meeting to approve it. My question is, Peter, are you going to ask Dave Franzuto about our time schedule, or would you like me to?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Peter, can we approve a draft to avoid calling a special meeting for this? Can we approve the draft we have now? And,
You can always approve it, but-
and you modify it without a vote?
Sounds like Dave's gonna modify it,
Yes.
so.
We approve it with the understanding that it's going to be modified.
Right, we often do that with, we
Yeah.
we trust Peter to to use the words to modify and complete a document for us, and yeah, I could do that. I think we can do that here.
Is it considered, would it be considered, unethical for us to individually speak with Dave about the modifications?
I don't see how it is because we're not,
There won't be any quorum there.
we're just, text.
This is simple wording. We want to be proactive and ahead of the game on, and I'm just concerned, with 3 weeks before our next meeting. Certainly, like we've all said, we can call the meeting, but, I'm also thinking,
But go ahead, Andy.
do we really need to? And can we take care of it now?
I'm just wondering if we can still hold a Zoom only meeting. In which case it wouldn't be anything to hold a Zoom meeting as opposed to all of us coming here, right?
Right.
We hold a Zoom meeting and we take care of it at the Zoom meeting if we needed to.
Still has to be announced.
Still has to be announced, but it's just 2 days.
Mhm.
So if we decided we wanted to have a meeting on Wednesday, we could, or whenever it would just be 48 hours.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that certainly works as well.
We could do that, but Dave's right, it's the same thing with me writing a letter, we can approve the draft. And trust the author, and Dave's the author, so he would just write it up. Does that sound right, Dave?
It does, but let's do this. Let me write it up. I'll send it out to everybody. If people think we need a special meeting, we need a special public meeting.
Okay.
And we could have a motion to say, if none of this board thinks a public meeting is required because we've all agreed to the wording. That doesn't sound right. I'm sorry. Yeah, we either are going to trust my take on it, or we're going to have a public meeting. One or the other. We don't have an option. Sunshine doesn't give us an option. We can do exactly what Peter said. I have to go think about it. I have to think about what I want to write up, but my take is, I think you guys will all be happy with what I write up. So I would
But
say let me do it.
Dave, I think that.
Mr. Chairman?
Dave, I think that it's the chairman's discretion. If he looked at that and thought, we got a special meeting about this, and he could decide to do that, and we could do it. But I think we should still go ahead and vote on the draft that you've created so far and say that we approve this effort and we trust that you're going to write it the way we want it.
With the adjustments we've discussed. Yeah, I mean, we discussed Scott's adjustments and Ginger's input. We kind of discussed that a lot. So I'm going to try and put all that into a package we like. So I think you're right. I would make, I don't know if I can make that motion. I guess I can since I'm writing it.
I
But
would
yeah,
be happy to make the motion.
Hang on.
thank you, Ginger. Okay.
Ginger?
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah,
I would like to make a motion that, having reviewed the draft and discussed the tweaks that we approve, Mr. Bossy to complete the language as discussed.
so Ginger has made a motion to approve the draft buck slip with revisions to be completed as discussed. Do we have a second
By
to
Mr.
that?
Bossy.
Yes,
But by Mr. Bossy.
yes, by Mr. Bossy, yes.
I'll second that.
Scott Anderson seconds the motion. Any discussion? All in favor on the motion to approve the draft buck slip by Mr. Bossy with revisions?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
that was Mr. Brace to begin with. Mr. Bossy,
Aye.
Ms. Andrews,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye as well. Thank you. Mr. Anderson,
We still need to confirm the date.
yes. I mean, what is September 9th? I mean, I feel like, See a calendar here. September 9th is a Saturday. When is Labor Day must be September 4th. I mean, September 9th is a good day. How do we go about?
I have one question, if I could. I would ask the guy, the Civic League has been so helpful. I would ask them what they think about a Sunday morning just instead. I don't know. I really don't know if people are busier on Saturday or, everybody's going to church on Sunday in September, but I just don't know. They would probably have a better feel for when they would do something in September. So if we could ask our contacts there, which of those 2 days, the 9th or the 10th, that'd be my recommendation.
Okay. I'm a little skeptical about Sunday.
Me too. But I'll email Peter Morrison about, September 9th.
Yeah, I just don't know. And I would ask people who've done this stuff. We tune into their things all the time and find them, they're great and helpful. So I think they have a good feel for it.
Excuse the pause. Peter's taking some notes. And who do we reach out to, Peter?
For what?
For scheduling the room.
Oh,
Back to Eric.
yeah, Erica. But I say, if we're in agreement that it's September 9th, then we should have a backup. So that if the room can't be scheduled,
Go to 16th.
Either that or work backwards. I guess, did we already decide August is not?
well, I mean, you go backwards, you're getting the Labor Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
August.
we decided right when the Civic League that going backwards wasn't good. I think
August
it would be the
Yeah, I guess you're right.
So September 9th is the one we want, September 16th as backup.
Yes.
Okay.
And then in July, I'm going to make everybody talk about an agenda.
Okay, thank you for taking the lead on this, Dave. That's awesome. Just by drafting it, you've got the date chosen for us as well. Perfect. Any more discussion on the Bucksworth?
We should take a vote on the dates.
Okay,
Okay, I move that September 9th be the date for the workshop, with September 16th being the backup date if we can't get September 9th.
I'll second that.
Second the motion.
all right. Mr. Brace has made a motion to select September 9th for our date, for our stormwater runoff workshop, seconded by Mr. Bossy. All in favor, Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Brace,
Aye.
Mr. Bossy,
Aye.
Ms. Andrews,
Aye.
the chair votes aye as well. Have we exhausted this for the moment?
I think so.
I believe so.
Okay. Vineyard Wind and South Coast Wind. I noticed Amy DeCibio got some mainstream media time on Fox Business News. It was quite interesting. She did a good representation. Anybody have anything they'd like to discuss, anything new? Not hearing any. Do we have anything new on green crabs?
Nothing new.
Okay. There is a report, the NSA is posting on social media. The traps have already been put in, they're catching them, and there's already been some ideas out there from people just pitching in saying, hey, those are good for bait. Of course, we know they're also going out and being used as compost. And the high school culinary team is possibly working with them as a meal as well. So interesting news on the green crabs, and I guess they're not all green. The NSA was showing some that are kind of an orangey color. And they also explained how you identify the green crab by its appearance. So very interesting stuff. The NSA is part of this program with the Land Council and co-sponsoring and funding. So I'm thankful. I think we're all grateful to the Nantucket Shellfish Association and the Nantucket Land Council for their efforts. Any discussion? Green crabs from the board. Harbors Action Plan Committee. We still need to work on some recommendations at some point.
I think we gotta wait until till two things happen. So we have our public meeting, which I believe is gonna be June 5th. And I think we gotta wait until the state says, go ahead and start planning. Because all we're doing right now is organizing. We're getting to know the 2009 plans matrix of implementation, and we're planning the public meeting, but we don't have the go ahead from the state. So I just think we take that time to think about what we want to recommend. We don't necessarily have to put it on paper, but just to be ready for that.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is, I know we have time, but we can let that time go by, and then all of a sudden we're, behind time. So, just preparing our thoughts, having it in mind, having your notebook, so when it is time to bring it out. Any discussion on the Harbors Action Plan Committee? Sediment transport study and dredge plan. Has there been anything anybody's heard new on this? Any progress with the contractor that will be working on the plan?
Haven't heard anything. I think that'd be a question for Tara, since she seems to know when they're, the last minutes that I did, she was saying they were supposed to start at a certain time, but she hadn't seen them on the island yet. So she's the one that will be giving us, or Jeff, an update.
Well, and maybe I think I'll, ask Tara if she could, ask Jeff to keep her updated, just before our meetings, if there's something she could fill us in on. And I noticed at the last meeting, she had, a new employee with her. Was it Griffin?
Yeah, it's Griffin Harkins.
And, any indication that we'll be seeing Griffin at more meetings? Or will he be filling in for Tara here and there?
Smart kid.
Okay, yeah, it looked pleasing to Tara to have,
That's the load off of it.
yes. And rightfully so. Any discussion on sediment transport and dredge plan? Not seeing or hearing any. Filling empty seat on SHAB, on the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board. We have one empty seat here, vacated by Stephen Payer. He has formally resigned. The select board, will be filling this seat at their normal round of appointments coming up. Do we have a date on when they do appointments?
Sometime in June. It's always, you know, it's before
Yeah.
the beginning of the next fiscal year, which will be July 1, so they'll do it sometime in June.
Dave, is that, Mr. Bossy, is that readily at hand that date?
No, I'd have to go check it out, but I think it sounds, June sounds right. I'm not sure if we can see who's applied yet or not. I don't know if that's public.
Yeah.
You had Steve Lineback was interested.
Steve Linebeck reached out to me and informed me that he has sent in a letter of interest via email to the select board to fill the seat. Jim Sherlin expressed interest. I have not reached out to Jim
I have.
since his expression.
I emailed him and said, if you want to do this, you should do it. I think he's on island till sometime in August. But I said, you need to do a letter that says you want to do it, if you want to do it. So you said he would get on it.
Okay. All right, good. Well, that would be wonderful to have imagine two people in search of one seat. And it kind of maybe says something about appointments over seats being voted on. Seems as though when a seat's empty and it's available for appointment, more people jump forward than they do for regular election. I don't know. It's very,
Less work. Don't
yeah,
have to get signatures.
yeah.
A lot less
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
You don't have to stand at the dump or at Stop and Shop. You don't have to campaign. You don't have to
Roll call.
just say, hey, I think I'd be great at this.
Yeah.
Please appoint me.
Okay, any discussion from the board on filling the empty seat?
Sooner the better.
All right. Health of the harbors, we have nothing new in health of the harbors. Like I've said before, I think most of our agenda items are health of the harbor. If there's something new any board member wants to bring in for our next meeting, mention so to Peter or I. At least 2 business days before the meeting date, so we can get it on the agenda. New business, aquaculture lease program, review and update. Peter, is this something we were gonna be working on with
at the last-
Laura?
At the big long meeting that we had, at the end of the meeting when they were talking about Ted Lambrecht's request. Tara mentioned that it was high time that the aquaculture lease program get reviewed and updated and tightened up. And so she's hot about that. And last time I saw her, I said, do you want this on the agenda for the next meeting? She said yes. And I said, will you be at the meeting? She said yes. So if she's not here, we know Tara, we know that if she's not here, she has a good reason. So but I think this is something she wants to go forward with. So
I'm hot to get somebody farming kelp in our harbor, but 20 years ago I'd be doing it. But yes, I'd like to see somebody doing that.
you could drive a tractor, Dave. You can do this.
Somebody mentioned something negative about kelp earlier. Well, it was actually Mr. Lambrecht who mentioned wanting to get into it. Years ago, we had a board member here who was doing research on kelp, raising kelp in the harbor. That was Joe LaPuma. It would be wise to get in touch with him and see what kind of information he's already gathered. And I'm trying to think of who mentioned, wasn't it not at that same, as you call, epic meeting, where somebody mentioned a negative effect of kelp? Somebody mentioned you really would not want kelp to take over and blanket the harbor.
Oh, no, no,
Well-
no. This is controlled kelp farming. Totally different. This is,
Okay,
yeah. No, this is, it's happening up and down the Northeast coast and into the Sound. This is, but it's completely controlled. And it's a pretty interesting subject.
and little shards of it can't tear off like Japanese knotweed and sprout up, in places where it's not expected to sprout up in the harbor.
It's not shards, it's not like,
Yeah.
it's not like you take a cutting of something and plant it in the plants.
Right.
There's an actual seed, which has to be distributed at the time when seeds come from kelp, and then, so you don't, a piece doesn't break off and then become another kelp plant.
Okay,
Well
So,
put, Peter. Yeah.
I mean, it's, and Dave Bossie's right, if it's organized for growing kelp, you're putting whatever you're growing it on down into the water, and when it's time, you pull it up and harvest it and take it out of the harbor, so it's not being left there to grow. But my initial thought was something that Jeff Carlson talked about when Ted was asking if he could get going, if there was more space for more aquaculture, or could more land be determined to be okay for growing shellfish. It's the carrying capacity of the harbor and the mixed uses, and is there enough room for it anyway? So someone's gonna have to want to do it. I don't know. Something to talk about when we're reviewing the aquaculture news program.
I would think this is a good thing to start talking about in fall when things quiet
Yeah.
down and we start, we finish up the things we're working on, and it's an interesting subject.
And I would say, Andy, maybe we invite Joe LaPuma to come and speak to us.
yeah,
So we'll have
Good
knowledge,
idea.
yes. Maybe we'll get him excited and he'll run for office next year.
all right. Any other discussion on aquaculture lease program? We'll keep this on the agenda for our next meeting. Goes to Resilience Advisory Board. Is there an update, Mr. Brace?
More or less, I mean, the Coastal Resilience Advisory Board met last, when was that? It was last Tuesday, and we did a viewing, what they call in Concom lingo, a site visit at Codfish Park and also at the geotubes for the purposes of enlightening all of our members on the various vulnerable spots around the island. We were going to go to other places. You know, I imagine those other places will include the sewer in front of the sewer beds and near Millie's Bridge and probably some downtown spots, but we were guided by Leah Hill, our coastal coordinator, and also Jeff Carlson. And so Jeff gave us a pretty good tour of Codfish Park and talked about the erosion control efforts down there, and explained how the dune field that begins way down on Lower Beach Road and carries all the way up to just before Baxter Road takes a real turn. That was interrupted by people who built houses and created Codfish Park. But originally the water used to go right up to the bank, and if the dunes are built out, and when Codfish Park was built, they pulled out all the pine trees which held the soil in place. But now there's a berm of beach grass in front of Codfish Park Road, which helps hold stuff in place.
After the houses on the east side of Codfish washed out to sea, of course, then
Yeah,
that
it was,
berm built up. Yeah.
for a lot of that. Yeah, and then we went to the geotubes, and he explained the various erosion control projects that have been done over the years since the early '90s, and about the geotubes, and educational for a lot of people and old hat for others. So that was basically our meeting.
Thank you, Peter. Board members, questions or comments? For Peter, yes,
I just like to say, I think it's great that you guys are doing a, feet on the ground tour of these places, and not just you, Peter, because your feet are on the ground all the time doing this, but I think everybody needs to see this, see the real life experience down there on the beach, see what's happening. And going
Yeah.
past the sewer beds will be enlightening too for people.
It was one of Leah's great ideas. I don't know if we're gonna do that for every meeting, but, I think it's an ongoing thing.
all right, thank you, Peter. Dave,
Mr. Chairman?
Ginger, please.
Oh, I'm just gonna throw out the idea. Wes Tiffany used to do what he called his erosion tours, and he would take people to various spots around the island and give them the history of those places. Like there was a newspaper article in the Inky about a barn in Sconset that washed away in a storm, and Wes's comment was that it was that you could tell that it was a surprise because the horse washed in as well as the barn. So, and the, footlight used to be at the foot of Sankaty Light and had to be moved. There's a lot of, history of what's happened, effects of various storms, and the human impacts of, going back for a couple hundred years, which are interesting. So if anybody wanted to do erosion tours, I think people would be interested. And it's not something I would personally like to tackle. I think I have plenty to do already, but, maybe somebody would, step up.
And boy, wasn't Wes Tiffany perfect for that? Nice memory, Ginger.
Yep.
Anything else from the board? Do we have any public questions or comment? Anything we'd like to have added to the agenda for our next meeting? Anything you'd like to talk about that was already on tonight's agenda that we may have missed? If not, our next meeting is June 6th, which is 3 weeks away, not 2. Please note that on your calendars. If there's nothing else to cover tonight, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Scott Anderson.
Second, Dave Bossy.
Motion's made by Mr. Anderson to adjourn tonight's meeting, seconded by Mr. Bossy. All in favor, Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Bossy,
Aye.
Ms. Andrews,
Aye.
Mr. Brace.
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Andy.
Good night,
You're
everybody.
welcome.
Thank you.
Good
Night.
good night.